When knowledge is illusion, let go of false ideas. My beloved ones, the state of the human mind is like a shattered honeycomb. Thoughts and thoughts and thoughts whirl all around. Surrounded by these thoughts, people live in anxiety, tension, and worry. In order to truly perceive and know life, the mind must be as silent as a still, undisturbed lake. To become intimately acquainted with life, the mind must be as clear as a mirror free of dust. We possess minds like honeycombs. They are not mirrors, nor are they silent lakes. If we believe that we can know something by means of such a mind, that we can attain something or that we can become something, we are making a grave mistake. It is absolutely necessary to free ourselves from this intense torrent of thoughts. Having thought after thought swirling about is not a sign of health. It is a sign of a weak mind. When a person's mind is pure and completely cleansed, when it is healthy, thoughts vanish. The consciousness remains, but the thoughts disappear. When the mind is weak and unwell, the consciousness is lost, leaving only a swarm of thoughts. We live within that crowd of thoughts. From morning to night, from night to morning, from birth until death, we dwell in a ceaseless multitude of thoughts. How can we be freed from this swarm of thoughts? We mentioned a few points about this earlier this morning, and several questions were raised in connection with what I said. Now I will answer those questions. The first point is that achieving freedom from thoughts is the second step. The first step is to not allow a collection of thoughts to form in the first place. If on one hand, you continually accumulate thoughts while on the other you strive to be free of them, how can you possibly manage? It is like trying to be free from the leaves of a tree while continuously watering its roots. How can you expect to be free from the leaves? While you water the roots, you seem unaware of the profound relationship between the roots and the leaves. The roots and the leaves may appear separate, but the leaves do not detach from the roots. The water given to the roots inevitably rises to the leaves. Thus, we gather many thoughts and continually water their roots, and then, when these thoughts render our mind uncomfortable and chaotic, we attempt to silence them. To stop the tree from growing leaves, we must cease watering its roots. We must understand how we are watering the roots of our thoughts. If we come to grasp this, we can stop it. Then the leaves will soon wither away. So, how do we water our thoughts? Wisdom from within and the illusion of borrowed thoughts. For thousands of years, people have been under the illusion that one can attain knowledge by accumulating the thoughts of others. This is utterly false and mistaken. No one has ever been able to achieve true knowledge by merely gathering the ideas of others. Knowledge comes from within, whereas thoughts always come from without. They are always borrowed. Knowledge is the vibrant expression unique to your own being, the unveiling of what is hidden deep inside you. Thoughts, on the other hand, are a collection of what others have said. You can gather them from the Gita, from the Quran, from the Bible, or from various religious leaders. Whatever we obtain from others does not become our true knowledge. Rather, it serves as a means and a pretext to cover up our own ignorance. And when a person's ignorance is completely hidden, that person can never reach genuine knowledge. Because we imagine that these are our own ideas, we cling to them with our whole being. We hold on tightly to our thoughts, lacking the courage to let them go. We nurture them because we believe they are our knowledge and that if we lose them, we will become ignorant. But remember, no matter how many thoughts we accumulate, they do not make us wise. Consider the act of digging a well. When one digs, first the soil and the stones are removed, then water seeps in from the walls of the well and fills it. The water is already there. It does not need to be brought in from somewhere else. Only a few stones and layers of earth must be cleared away. There exist obstacles, impediments. Once they are removed, the water appears. There is no need to bring water to the well. It is already present. Only the barriers, the stones, and the earth must be eliminated through digging, and then the stream of knowledge will begin to flow. Yet, people can build a well, and they can also construct a pond. A pond is different. To create a pond, you do not need to search for a stream of water. The method of making a pond is completely opposite to that of digging a well. To make a pond, you do not remove stones and earth. Instead, you must bring them in from somewhere else and build walls with them. And once the walls are erected, water does not come on its own. You must fetch water from someone else's well and pour it into the pond. On the surface, a pond gives the illusion of being a well. It appears to be a well. You can see water in the pond and you can see water in the well as well, but the difference between a pond and a well is as distinct as the difference between earth and sky. The first difference is that a pond does not have its own water. No desire in this world is ever satisfied by something that does not belong solely to you. Everything in a pond is borrowed and will soon become stale and foul. What is borrowed is not alive, it is dead. The water that stagnates in a pond becomes trapped, unpleasant, and soon emits a foul odor. But a well has its own source of water. Its water never stagnates. A well has a flow of water that belongs only to it. Two entirely different processes are at work in a pond and in a well. A pond is afraid that someone might take its water away, because if its water is lost, it becomes empty. Meanwhile, a well wishes that someone would take some of its water so that it can expel the old water and receive new, fresh, and lively water. The well calls out, "Take my water away. I want to share it." Whereas the pond shouts, "Stay away. Do not touch my water. Do not take it away." The pond desires that someone bring in water from elsewhere to pour into it, so that its possessions may grow. But if someone has a container, the well wishes that the person takes away some of its water to sweep away the old and receive the new. The well wants to share, the pond wants to hoard. The well has a flow of water connected to the ocean. Though the well may seem small, deep within it, it is linked to the infinite. And no matter how large a pond may appear, it is isolated. It ends within itself and remains closed off. It has no flowing water. It has no way to connect with the infinite. The well and the pond, knowledge and the illusion of borrowed thoughts. If someone goes to a pond and speaks of the ocean, the pond will laugh and say, "There is no such thing as an ocean. Everything is just a pond. There is no ocean anywhere." The pond has no concept of the ocean. But if someone praises the beauty of a well, the well will reflect, "What is mine? Everything comes from the ocean. What am I? Whatever comes to me is connected from afar to something else." A well cannot possess any sense of I of its own. The self is absent, whereas a pond has an ego, the I am here. And what is interesting is that the well is vast while the pond is very small. The well has its own reservoir, its own flowing water, whereas the pond lacks its own source. The human mind can become either a well or a pond. These are the only two possibilities for the way the mind can be. And a mind that becomes a pond gradually, slowly becomes insane. All of our minds have become like ponds. We have not created wells, we have created ponds. We collect everything from around the world, from books, from scriptures, from sermons. We gather it all and believe that we have become wise. We have made the same mistake as the pond. The pond thinks it is a well because water is seen in both. You may see knowledge in a scholar, a teacher, and in the conscious person, but the scholar is like a pond, while the conscious person is like a well. There is a fundamental, profound difference between these two. You cannot imagine how deep and fundamental this difference is. The knowledge of the scholar is borrowed, stagnant, and old. Every trouble that has arisen in this world is because of the scholar's knowledge. What is the struggle between Hindus and Muslims about? It is a struggle among scholars. The opposition between Jains and Hindus is an opposition among intellectuals. It is the conflict of scholars whose minds have become rotten, borrowed, and stale. All the troubles in the world are because the mind has become a pond. And it is not just people, whether they are Christians, Hindus, Muslims, or Jains. These are merely labels of a pond. The pond labels itself, the label of a well from which it has drawn its water. Someone who draws water from the Gita is deemed a Hindu. Someone who draws water from the Quran is deemed a Muslim. A conscious person does not take water from someone else. The water comes from within, from one's own existence, so that person cannot be confined to being Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. A conscious person cannot belong to any sect, yet a scholar cannot exist without a sect. Whenever there is a scholar, he belongs to a sect. We have turned our minds into something stagnant and borrowed, and then we cling to them. As I have said, the pond cries out, "Do not take my water away. If my water is taken, I will become empty. Nothing will remain within me. My reservoir is borrowed, so no one is allowed to take it away." Remember, a reservoir that diminishes as it is taken away is always borrowed and false. A reservoir that grows by being taken from is real. A reservoir that is depleted by sharing is not a reservoir at all. It is merely accumulation. Only a reservoir that grows more through sharing is genuine. The quality of a true reservoir lies in its ability to expand through sharing. If it diminishes when shared, it is not a true reservoir. And someone who fears that their reservoir will vanish by sharing will worry excessively about their reservoir. Thus, all that is borrowed becomes a source of anxiety. Because it is never real, one fears that it will disappear, so we cling to it even more. We grip our thoughts tightly. We tend to nurture them more for our lives. All this rubbish accumulated in our minds is not there by accident. We have arranged it, we have collected it, and we have nurtured it. Therefore, if we believe that knowledge arises by accumulating thoughts, we will never be free of them. How can we ever become free? It is like watering the roots and then trying to cut off the leaves. It simply cannot happen. Thus, the fundamental point to understand is that knowledge and the collection of thoughts are two different things. Thoughts acquired or borrowed from others are not knowledge. Ideas taken from external sources do not lead one to truth or to one's own self. Such knowledge is false. It is ragged knowledge. It creates the illusion that we have attained knowledge, while in reality, nothing is truly known. We remain ignorant. The swimming paradox, when theory fails in practice. This situation is just like someone who has read countless books about swimming and studied it so thoroughly that if asked to give a talk or write a book on the subject, they could do so. But if that person is suddenly thrown into a river, it becomes evident that they cannot swim. They have read and researched every theory. They know all the principles. But in practice, they simply cannot swim. There was once a Muslim fakir named Nasruddin. One time, as he was crossing a river sitting on a boat, he struck up a conversation with the boatman. Nasruddin was reputed to be exceedingly knowledgeable, and when a knowledgeable person has the chance to expose someone's ignorance, they never miss it. Nasruddin asked the boatman, "Do you know how to read?" The boatman replied, "No, I can speak. I know nothing about reading or writing." Nasruddin said, "A quarter of your life has been wasted in futility. Without the ability to read, how can you ever attain any knowledge in your life? How foolish! No one can achieve true knowledge without the power to read." Yet the boatman began to laugh silently. After they had traveled a little further, Nasruddin asked, "Do you know anything about mathematics?" The boatman replied, "No, I don't know a thing about mathematics. I simply count on my fingers." Nasruddin then said, "Another quarter of your life is lost in futility, for a person who doesn't understand mathematics cannot calculate, cannot accumulate anything in life. How can you earn a living? One must know how to count in order to earn something. What will you earn? Half your life is wasted already." Then suddenly, a storm arose, a whirlwind, and the boat overturned and sank. The boatman cried, "Do you know how to swim?" Nasruddin shouted, "No, I don't know how to swim." The boatman exclaimed, "Your whole life has been wasted. I'm leaving now. I may not know mathematics or reading, but I know how to swim. Therefore, I abandon you. Your whole life has been in vain." In life, there are certain truths that can only be known by oneself. They cannot be learned from books or scriptures. The truth of the soul, or the truth of the universe, can only be experienced firsthand. There is no other way. These things may be written in sacred texts. We can read them, understand them, memorize them, and study them. We can tell others about them, yet no genuine knowledge is ever truly attained. Accumulating facts and opinions from others is not a sign of knowledge. It is only a sign of ignorance. The awakened, conscious person is free from all such knowledge. They do not gather any further facts, because they already know themselves. In that self-knowledge, the mind ceases to be a chaotic honeycomb and becomes a mirror, a still lake. Our minds are like honeycombs filled with the thoughts we have nurtured because we believe they are knowledge. We have given these thoughts space in our inner home. We have made them permanent residents. We have turned our mind into a boarding house. Anyone who comes in is allowed to stay as long as they wear the garment of knowledge. Thus, they are permitted to remain. And the crowd in this boarding house has grown so vast that it has become nearly impossible to discern who the true master is. Every thought shouts that it is the master. So in this overcrowded lodging, it becomes impossible to know who the real master is. No thought wants to leave. How can someone we have invited to stay ever depart? It is easy to invite guests, but not easy to evict them. For thousands of years, guests have gathered in the human mind, and if I asked you to say farewell to them today, you would not be able to dismiss them immediately. But if we understand the nature of our illusion, we can dismiss them. We nurture these thoughts because we mistakenly believe they are our knowledge. Thus, the first thing to understand is that every thought learned from others is ultimately futile. Once this is clear, we have cut the very roots of this collection of thoughts. We have stopped watering their roots. A wise old man once journeyed through a dense forest with one of his young disciples. As night fell and darkness began to spread, the old man asked his disciple, "Tell me, do you think there is any danger along this path? This is a road through the deep forest and the sky is growing dark. Is there anything to fear?" The young disciple was very surprised, for how could a sannyasin, a renunciate, feel fear? Whether it is dark or light, whether it is forest or marketplace, for a sannyasin, feeling fear is most unusual. And this old man had never been afraid. "What happened today? Why do you fear? Something is amiss." Then they walked a little further, and the night grew even darker. The old man asked again, "Is there anything to worry about? Are we nearing another town? How far is it?" They then stopped near a well to wash their hands and faces. The old man handed his bag to the young disciple and said, "Take care of this." The young man thought, "Surely there must be something valuable in the bag. Otherwise, Why would there be any fear or worry about it? For a sannyasin, caring for something is unusual. What is there for a sannyasin to care about? The old man began to wash his face. The young man reached into the bag and discovered a golden brick inside. In that moment, he understood the source of the fear. He threw the golden brick into the forest and replaced it with a stone of equal weight. After finishing his face wash, the old man quickly returned, took the bag, felt its weight, slung it back over his shoulder, and resumed walking. Shortly thereafter, he said, "The sky is very dark now. Have we lost our way? Is there danger?" The young disciple replied, "Do not be afraid. I have thrown away the fear." The old man was stunned. He immediately looked into the bag and found that, instead of gold, there was a stone inside. For a moment he stood there in silence. Then he began to laugh and said, "I am a fool. I carried a stone all along and I was afraid because I thought it was a golden brick." Realizing his mistake, he threw the stone away and said to his disciple, "Tonight we shall sleep here, for it is hard to find our way in the dark." That night, they slept peacefully in the forest. Discarding the weight of borrowed ideas. If you think that your thoughts and ideas are golden bricks, you will tend to cherish and cling to them. But I want to tell you that they are not golden bricks at all. They are nothing more than heavy stones. What you consider as knowledge is not knowledge at all. It is not gold. It is absolutely stone. The knowledge obtained from others is merely stone. Only the knowledge that arises from within you is gold. The day you realize that you are carrying stones in your bag is the day this problem comes to an end. Then it will be no more difficult to discard the stones. There is no difficulty in throwing away trash, but it is difficult to discard gold. As long as you feel that your thoughts are knowledge, you cannot discard them, and your mind will remain in chaos. You might try thousands of ways to calm it, but nothing will work because deep down you want these thoughts to remain, because you believe they are knowledge. The greatest difficulty in life arises from the misunderstanding that we believe something exists when it really does not. Thus, all troubles begin when someone thinks that a stone is a golden brick. When one recognizes that the stone is just a stone, the problem is resolved. Therefore, the treasure of our thoughts is not a real treasure. This fact must be understood. How do you understand this? You might understand it from my words, but if you understand it just because I say so, that understanding is borrowed and, therefore, futile. It is not a matter of understanding something simply because I say it. You must look, search, and realize it for yourself. If that young disciple had said to the old man, "Just keep walking. Don't worry. There is a stone in your bag, not gold," it might not have made any difference to the old man as long as he had not seen with his own eyes that this was the reality. If the young man merely said it to him, the old man might simply have smiled and thought, "He is just a young fellow, ignorant, knowing nothing." Perhaps he might even have believed him and accepted his words, but his acceptance would have been superficial. Deep inside, he would still cling to the idea of keeping a golden brick safe. Yet, the personal experience of seeing it makes all the difference. Therefore, you must look into the bag of your mind and see whether what you think is truly knowledge, whether it really is knowledge, or whether you have merely gathered rubbish. We have collected the verses of the Gita, the statements of the Vedas, the words of Mahavir and the Buddha, and we continuously memorize them, think about them, and seek their meaning. We keep on reading, annotating, and discussing them amongst ourselves. Absolute madness has been created. True knowledge has nothing to do with this madness. No flame, no light will ever arise in your life from it. And by accumulating such rubbish, you create the illusion that you have acquired a magnificent treasury of knowledge, that you are a great master, that your storehouse is full, and you will live your life accordingly, only to destroy it in the process. Inner Truth Verses. Borrowed Learning. A young monk in a monastery had come to sit in the presence of an old master. Yet, within just a few days, the young monk began to feel that the old master knew nothing at all. Hearing the same words day after day, he grew bored. He thought he should leave the monastery and seek another teacher, a place that suited him better. But on the very day he planned to depart, another monk visited the monastery. That night, the fellow monks gathered and talked about many things. The new monk was exceedingly knowledgeable about many matters, so refined, perceptive, profound, and intense. And the young monk thought, surely this is how a teacher should be. In just 2 hours, the new monk captivated everyone. The young monk then assumed that the old master must be suffering deeply and be very disappointed that, despite his age, he knew so little, while this newcomer seemed to know so much. After 2 hours, when the conversation was over, the guest monk looked at the old master and asked, "Did you enjoy my talk?" The old master replied, "My talk? You have spoken, but nothing you said was truly your own." I listened very intently, expecting to hear something original, yet you said nothing at all. The guest monk retorted, "If it wasn't me speaking, then who has spoken for the past 2 hours?" The old master answered, "If you ask for my sincere opinion, then the scriptures and sacred texts have already spoken from within you, but you have not said a single thing. You have vomited out everything you've accumulated, and in doing so, you have given rise to the fear that you are weak. For 2 hours, you continuously regurgitated every scrap that had been stored in your belly, filling the room with filth and a foul stench. I could not detect even the faintest fragrance of knowledge, because anything taken from without and then expelled carries the reek of mere regurgitation. In truth, not one word you uttered was truly your own." After hearing the old master's words, the young monk, who had been on the verge of leaving the monastery, decided to stay. That day, for the first time, he came to understand that there are different kinds of knowing. One kind of knowing is that which we accumulate from without, and the other kind is that which arises from within. Anything we collect from external sources becomes a dependency. It does not set us free. True liberation comes from what arises from within. So, the first step is to look inward. Ask yourself, do I really know anything that I claim to know? Question every thought and every word you believe you know. Do you truly understand it? And if your answer is, I do not truly know it, then all those golden bricks in your bag will gradually turn into mere stones. You might fool everyone else in the world, but you can never fool yourself. No one can deceive oneself. Anything you do not truly know remains unknown. If I ask you, do you know truth? And you nod and say, yes, I know it, then you are not being genuine. Ask yourself deep within, do I know truth, or do I merely accept everything I've been told? And if you discover that you do not truly know, then such truth is worthless. How can something you do not know truly transform your life? Only the truth that you know for yourself can revolutionize your life. That which you merely accept without knowing is not truth at all. It is borrowed and will never change anything in your life. It is like asking, do you know about your soul? And you reply, yes, I do, because I read about it in books and the monks in the temple say that the soul exists. People remember like parrots whatever is taught to them, but such memorization is nothing like true knowing. If you are born into a Hindu family, you become one kind of parrot. If you are born into a Jain family, you become another. If you are born into a Muslim family, you become yet another type, and in every case, you become a parrot. Whatever is taught to you, you repeat it all your life. And since there are similar parrots all around you, no one disagrees, no one argues. Those parrots nod their heads in agreement, affirming that you are absolutely right, because they have learned the same things you have. In religious meetings, the religious leaders teach and everyone nods in unison, agreeing that they are absolutely right, because whatever the religious leader has learned, everyone else has as well, and both groups sit there nodding that, yes, what is said is absolutely true. That is also written in our scriptures. We have all read it too.